This construction, of which today we can only see the immense space it occupied, justly deserves the name of Circus Maximus, as it is by far the largest building ever constructed by humans for entertainment purposes. The Romans claimed it was founded by the ancient kings in the century before Christ, but it seems as though nature itself had chosen this site, whose dimensions surpass human measures. The arrangement of the valley between the Palatine and Aventine hills naturally reproduced the layout of a racetrack. The slopes of the hills served as makeshift stands, and the spongy quality of the terrain was well suited to cushion the terrible falls of the racers. In those early times, the Circus Maximus must have looked much like what we see today. Its ornamentation consisted of two large wooden cones called metae, placed at the ends of the track around which the chariots would turn during the race. Over time, the metae were connected by a longitudinal base, the spina, which also served to channel the stream that flowed through the center of the valley. Little by little, the great circus took on a monumental appearance. Wooden stands were erected on the slopes, and shelters were built to group the chariots before the start. In the 1st century, before Christ, the great General Pompey offered an elephant fight in its arena, and for the first time installed iron fences to protect the public, though this did not prevent the elephants, maddened by the crowd's shouts, from knocking them down and causing the terrified spectators to flee. For greater safety, Julius Caesar surrounded the entire track with a water-filled ditch and prepared the slopes of the hills to accommodate 150,000 people. Augustus, the first emperor, built an imperial tribune and adorned the circus's spinner with a 24-meter-high obelisk that had been carved in 1280 BC during the reign of Ramses I, and today stands in the Piazza del Popolo. After the famous fire of Rome in the year 64, Nero removed the protective ditch to build magnificent seats for senators and knights. And later, Trajan made new expansions. After these reforms, the weight of the wooden stands was so enormous that they collapsed in the late 3rd century, claiming the lives of 15,000 spectators. In the 4th century, the spina of the circus was adorned with a second 32-meter-high obelisk, which now stands in St. John Lateran and is the largest obelisk in Rome. It was carved by the great pharaoh Thutmose III in 50,000 BC and was installed in the Circus Maximus after a hazardous journey. Initially, Emperor Constantine had ordered it to be transported from Egypt to Constantinople, the new capital of the Roman Empire, but the enormous stone mass remained for 25 years on the docks of Alexandria until Constantius II, Constantine's son, finally decided to bring it to Rome. The placement of this second obelisk marks the peak of the Circus Maximus, whose dimensions even today seem bewildering. Our largest stadiums do not even reach a third of the capacity of this building, which could accommodate more than 300,000 spectators. It measured 600 meters in length and 200 meters in width, with the last rows of seats situated about 30 meters high. To support the weight of the stands, the first 2 levels were made of concrete and the last of wood. Public executions, gladiatorial combats, and wild animal hunts took place in the Circus Maximus, but its main function was to host chariot races. When the day of competition arrived, the entire city, without distinction of sex or social class, gathered in the Circus Maximus to witness one of the most extraordinary spectacles devised by man. The chariots and their fans were divided into 4 teams, identified by their colors: green, white, red, and blue. Before the start, the chariots, adorned with feathers and precious stones, gathered at the western end, closest to the river, where the charioteers prepared for the race while trying to calm their horses, excited by the tension and the presence of other beasts. Suddenly, a trumpet sounded, and the magistrate presiding over the games, covered in a purple tunic and crowned with gold, dropped a white handkerchief onto the track. This slight signal was enough for the charioteers to spur their horses into a furious gallop, and 300,000 throats began to shout in unison. The public in the upper stands, tightly packed together, cheered wildly each time their favorite team surged ahead. Meanwhile, next to the track, members of the Senate forgot their refined manners and, standing on their marble seats, hurled insults at the blue team's driver, the favorite of the nobility, if he failed to overcome his rivals on the track. The competition was a matter of life and death. Surrounded by a cloud of dust, deafened by the horses galloping and the crowd's roar, the charioteers could barely see what lay ahead. At each curve, the chariots collided, and their entire structure creaked with terrible cracks. A small mistake, a mistimed pull of the reins, or a misstep by any of the horses could smash the chariot against the walls or throw the driver into the center of the arena, where he would be mercilessly crushed by the competitors' chariots. The races ended when 7 laps were completed, counted by 7 large bronze dolphins donated by Agrippa in 33 BC. At the finish, the most extraordinary honors awaited the victor regardless of his birth. The most skillful could amass fortunes that made even the wealthiest senators pale. Rome, whose walls were covered with portraits of the winners, allowed these brave men any indulgence. Ladies vied for their favors, men for their company, and if they committed a crime, they could be certain it would go unpunished. The circus remained in use until the mid-6th century AD, and even the Ostrogothic kings who ruled Italy after the fall of the Roman Empire organized official races there. Forgotten during the Middle Ages in the 15th century, it was excavated to unearth the obelisks found 7 meters underground. In the 19th century, it housed the offices of the gas company, and in the 1930s, the entire area was cleared to convert it into the public park we see today. And excavations revealed the structures visible at one of its ends. Although it seems incredible, it is known that the Circus Maximus remains almost entirely intact underground, but archaeological work is hampered by the underground course of the Aqua Mariana, the stream that flowed through the valley until the 20th century. Perhaps one day, not too far in the future, we will be able to fully witness the spectacle of its immense ruins.